Hi everyone, so today we're going to continue with the floral drawing or painting or illustrating, and I'm going to still take my reference from this beautiful botanical book, which I will leave a link down below. If there is going to be a book review by the time that this video comes out, I will also link it. Otherwise, watch out, it should be coming out very soon. Okay, so I have now flipped through to the fungi, so the mushroom family, and I quite like this picture here, which is, it's called the Pixie-Cup Lichen. I have no idea, but anyway, so it kind of looks like a succulent almost. I have never seen mushrooms like that, but if you are into botanical and you would love to learn more, this book is great for that. But basically this is the color scheme we're looking at. Sorry, I'm trying to get it. There we go. So it's got these beautiful kind of greens and grays and all of that. And to begin with, I always do the same thing, which is grabbing my swatch book and looking into the watercolors that I have here to quickly pick the right colors. So I have a color in mind. I just want to see it on paper. So Perylene green for sure I will need for this illustration, and maybe a little bit of cobalt turquoise. I think that would be good, and all the other greens I already have here, so I don't really need anything else. Okay, so these are Schmincke, and I'm going to grab them. Okay, so I can't actually find that cobalt turquoise because I have it in a pan, so I strictly want to use my lovely tubes of watercolors so for this series, and that is why I'm not going to use that color, but instead I have picked this color here, which is ultramarine turquoise, and although it's quite different to cobalt turquoise, it will have that kind of lovely greenness to it, which I'm hoping to mix together with the Perylene green and get a somewhat similar color. And then, like I said, a bunch of greens are here. So that is the part for picking your watercolors. All right, so the next thing I will do is squeeze out these. Oh, this one has separated a little bit from the Gamma Arabic. So that's the Perylene green, and this one is the ultramarine turquoise. Probably won't need as much, but we'll see. Sometimes it's hard to squeeze out a little amount. Okay, so what we're going to do next is actually take a little piece of paper. So this isn't watercolor paper, this is the Vellum B paper, which actually, if you don't use too much water, it works quite beautifully, but I'm going to use it anyhow for mixing these colors. Now, if you have some watercolors left in your tray and you don't quite remember what color does what I would recommend is kind of starting somewhere. So now I know this is the green Apatite Genuine. So this one I know, but I will just remind myself of the color scheme that I have going here, and just start somewhere and go clockwise. So these are the new colors that I have added. Look at this, how intense it is. So you'll see now if I add a bit more water, or not water rather, if I wash my brush out, this is the lovely color that I get, and I will show you in a minute in the book. And this is this beautiful turquoise color. Now, if we're going to, this is a good little exercise to do before you start. Take a paper and do some mixes and see what you can create. So this is a lovely color here. Actually very similar to the color that I was hoping to mix. So there's a bit of this color, a bit of this color here, doing these little swatches is not only fun and you know, making your appetite going for watercolors again, but it definitely is very useful as well. So we've got this color, which you can see is quite similar. So this was the Perylene green, gorgeous granulation, and it's quite similar to these two mixed, but yeah, so definitely going to be quite useful. While we're here, I want to see what would happen if I would take this Perylene green and sort of mix it with this Dr. P.H. Martin's. Always make sure you mix it really good, because it kind of like dries up into these little clusters, so you want to make sure it's not clustered up. So I'm just going to mix this on paper and see what happens, because it tends to separate interestingly. Okay, so I'm going to get my sketchbook ready now, and I'm going to dry these watercolors and come back. Alright, I'm trying to balance this humongous book on one hand and hoping not to knock over anything else. But here is the color, and as you can see, this is a great match to it. So there's some greens here which I don't know if you can pick up on, but they're definitely very close to this color. If I add a little bit more Perylene green and water it out, and then essentially this color in some of the dark areas, but definitely this is a very close match to it. And then even the darkest bits, you can see this is straight up Perylene green. So we're good to go. Having done this little exercise, I can literally see that all I will need is Perylene green, a little bit of the no, this wasn't it, this was this one here, Dr. P.H. Martin sub green, and Perylene green, and this is, sorry, Prussian green, and the Ultramarine turquoise. So 1, 2, 3, 4 colors to mix a variety of these shades. Alright, so for the ink today, for the drawing part, I will use the carbon ink, which is by the brand Platinum, and it's a waterproof ink, and it really is waterproof when I say that, because some brands misadvertise their waterproof and they think that if you wait 24 hours and then it's dried fully, then it's waterproof. No, it is waterproof within a few minutes of, well, literally once it dries, because if it's still wet on the paper, you know, it's unfair to say that it's moving, because it hasn't had time to dry. So once it's dried, then it is, and it dries really quickly. I know someone left a comment that their carbon ink takes ages to dry, but mine doesn't. It dries really quick. So I usually use this pen here, so the fountain pen that comes from the same brand, and it's a super fine, but I have discovered even finer nib, which is this gorgeous thing. It costs very little. This is a specific dip pen for Japanese manga comics, so I'll link below the dip pen, but basically I have been using it a lot in combination with the crystal glass dip pen. Anyhow, so today I don't want the watercolor or the ink to flow or move into the watercolor. I want it to stay nicely where I put it, so that's why I'm going to use this ink, and the process is going to be exactly the same. So you just dip your fountain pen into it and start drawing.
I said some things I wasn't clear. No, it hurt you, but I still care. No, I miss you laying there. Did you wrong and it wasn't fair. If I could go back, then I would treat you better. If I could just change my words like in a letter. I did some things, but I wasn't clear. No, I did it wrong and you did it right. Yeah, that's what you said when you started the fight.
Alright, let's move on to the watercolor. So I'm getting my space nice and ready and comfortable, and as you see there, all of my wells in the daisy dish are filled up with watercolors. And if you are in the same situation where you need some mixing space, then I highly advise using this peel off or tear off palette paper, which is just great to cut in little pieces and then just use as that extra little bit of space to mix your colors. So I'm starting by mixing up like a base color for these mushrooms. I really have never seen mushrooms like that. I have to read up on them. They might be the first type of mushroom that ever existed. So the base color is just there to start off somewhere, and it's a good thing to mix it up quite pale and light, because you don't want to start too dark, as you can always build it up to be a darker color later. So now I'm also changing to slightly different hue and creating more of a green light mix, so the same strength as the base color but just a different hue, and that helps to break up that kind of one solid base color that was laid there. And you always want to create interest in your watercolors, and that's one way of doing it. The second way is a glaze, which I will show you later on in the illustration process. So here I'm just building up the color. As you can see now, I'm really going in with the two dark colors. So the one in the middle of the well is Prussian green, and the one that I added to it is the Perylene green. And mixing them together creates this beautiful, dark, deep, kind of turquoisey, moody green. And as you can see now, the centers of these kind of cups on top are very dark compared to the base color that is now looking pretty flat. So using a hairdryer, I have now made sure that the colors are completely dry, and now what I'm going to do is create a glaze. And essentially what it means is applying another layer of watercolor on top of a completely dried watercolor beneath. So that means that there is not going to be any blending or mixing of the two colors, but the second color is going to sit on top of the first one. And now what I'm trying to do is to lift and create depth and interest to that base color, so that it won't be as kind of flat looking. And I'm breaking it up with creating more again texture and depth and dimension. So just adding that very same color in different kind of strength. So some of them are darker mixed up and some of them a bit lighter. And now I'm going in with the very darkest mix of the Perylene green and really saturating those centers of the mushrooms, and you can see how they really pop. And yeah, so now I've done a second drying, and I'm trying to show you here that I just left these little dots of watercolor that haven't dried fully, and now I'm going to do another watercolor technique which is called lifting. So I'm taking a tissue paper and lifting that wet color watercolor from the paper, and that creates a lovely, again, textural effect. So this is it for my simple and easy and quick fungi family illustration. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something new from this video and try it yourself. Thanks for watching and see you soon.